Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, anything you can do as far as updating Trey Bennett didn't play? Just what's the inning timetable for Reeves?
No update this morning. And the same thing with the injuries, trying to stay away from the updates at this point, and then we'll just do the availability report. But nothing update there.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. I'm going to ask you about your running game. Defenses are, of course, stacking the box against you guys, especially the last 3 weeks. Does something need to improve with the offensive line and the running backs, or is it kind of like we're doing as well as we can considering?
No. I don't think that's the case. I think we all need to do better. Absolutely, yeah. Going back and watching the film, we gotta block better. We gotta run better. We gotta try to do a better job equating numbers. All the above, because certainly in games where they know you're going to run it, you have to come up with answers. But just moving forward in general, we know we can do a better job, and so we'll get back to work this week and get after it.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, obviously you guys played in bad weather last year at Michigan. You played in bad weather Saturday. Just are there issues that you think are popping up that are consistent with playing cold weather that this team needs to get better at?
I think last week was just one of the most unique things I've ever been around. I think someone said at one point there was a 80-mile-an-hour wind gust in the area. It was just very strange. So, if we play in a game like that again, I think we would probably maybe try to run the quarterback a little bit more, a little bit earlier. But that comes with risks as well. So, I think there's bad weather and then there's extreme weather, and I thought that was pretty extreme on Saturday.
Fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman row.
Ryan, when you talk about the advantages and disadvantages of running CJ, is it just as simple as now that it's on film, it's something that the defenses have to account for? And is that just as simple as that, or do you want to see that a little more become a part of your offense?
Well, I think CJ, embraced it, and you could see what he can do, and I think it can be a weapon for us moving forward. So, maybe we found a little something there, but that has pluses and minuses as well. But at the end of the day, our running back's got to run, and our line's got to block, and tight end's got to block. Receiver's got to be a part of it. Whether it's the perimeter run game with the bubbles and things like that, or coming down to block safeties. I mean, everyone's got to be involved in this, and we all just got to execute it better.
We've asked you about the other two pretty frequently here.
Yep.
On the offensive line, obviously you've had the same starting lineup the entire. Have you guys thought about maybe switching some things up? And if guys like Josh Fryer and Enoch Pamahi showed you some things that maybe deserve a chance?
I thought Josh, when he came in, played well. Having the sixth offensive lineman in the game is something that we don't do a lot of. But when we've done it, it's been solid for us, and I think his play has been better. I think he's gotten better. I think he's, when you come back after that ACL, it takes a while to really not just be healthy, but to get to the level of play you were before. I think he's getting to that point. I don't know if he's quite there yet, but he's getting there, and had some good snaps on Saturday. But we're always looking at that. I mean, if there's a better guy or two that we can put on the field, we'll do that. Right now we feel like we're playing the best five. Yeah, no, I mean he's out there practicing every day, but right now we feel like we're playing the best five.
Over to the right, Don Berry, WDMS.
Coach, you obviously you want to be. You've talked about this in the past. You want to be perfect, but you look at the landscape of college football and what happened this past weekend. Is it important not to lose sight, though, that it's important to win, that these games, even if it's an ugly win, it's still a win?
Yeah. I mean, you play 9 conference games, and then our 10th was Notre Dame, and so that's 10 conference games, and you got to bring it every week. And it's not like you can show up and just roll your helmets out there. It doesn't work that way. And when you have different situations, you put yourself at risk, and that's something that we brought up all along. We know that that's the case, and so we have to just keep finding ways to win. And I think that's very important to recognize that if you keep winning, you're going to keep moving on. So, style points or no style points win. That being said, when you look at the film, are we playing really clean football in all areas? Are we, getting better every week? Those are the things we're going to focus on, and that's what we'll get back to work today, and we'll have a meeting here at 2:30. Identify the things we've got to get better at, and have a good week of practice, and go play Indiana.
Right behind him, Clay Hall, WSYX.
How much are you prepping for Michigan? how much have you done all along, and are you ramping up in some sense?
I mean, that's what we say around here is we live it every day, working at it every day of the year. And, we have to focus on beating Indiana this week. But the way that we approach it is we're working on that game every day of the year.
Right behind him, Adam King, WBNS.
You've talked about toughness and physicality all offseason, every week. Now with that game, just a couple weeks away, do you feel like your guys are where they need to be toughness-wise?
I think we've definitely shown it. I think you can see that our guys have played physical, and that's something that we've taken a lot of pride in this year. You can see what we've done this season, but again, it's something that is you can't just say, all of a sudden you're playing, efficient football, you're playing tough football, you're playing clean football, you're doing this, you're doing that, and all of a sudden it's just going to happen again the next week. You just got to keep bringing it every week, and then at the end of the year, you'll look back on the body of work and then you can start identifying the things you've done well. But I think that throughout the year, I think if you've seen some of the teams we played and talked to the teams we played, you've recognized how hard, how tough we played. And again, the three things that we focused on is toughness, discipline, and skill.
How do you coach toughness? What goes into that in practice?
Well, it's just a way of life. It's the way that you wake up in the morning. It's the way you meet. It's the way you practice. It's everything, and it's not just the physicality. It's the mental approach. It's being able to bring it every day in practice, but part of it's physicality as well. There's a lot to that.
Deep back row, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Ryan, obviously the last month of the recruiting cycle is always crazy. Seems like this year seems to be setting up for something even more chaotic around the country.
Yep.
Obviously knowing you can't speak to specific recruits, but what are you guys doing just as a staff to kind of prepare for what looks to be a pretty tumultuous few weeks ahead?
Well, we can keep winning because that plays into it big time. And I think that all the recruits want to see how well you're playing on Saturday and what you said in recruiting is actually happening. I think a big part of that is on defense. Some of the things that we've talked to recruits about on the defensive side, they had to see it with their own eyes, and I think that they're doing that. So, we have our weekly calls and we touch base with guys, but a big part of this is finishing the season strong and making sure that they see where we're at as a program. Because as you project out, in college football, you want to make sure that you're part of a program that's winning and that has a lot of stability, and that's something that we sell a lot.
How much more of an onus does that put on you guys to make sure you recruit the players that fit what you're looking for culture-wise?
No, that's everything right now. Well, I guess I could say more than ever, but I'm sure it's been like this for 30 years here. But you have to make sure that you're recruiting great people. With the way that things have changed with the transfer portal, with NIL, a culture fit is critically important because not every day is going to be perfect, and you want to have guys that want to be Buckeyes for the right reasons, and they're going to work through adversity and tough times, and so that's a big part of the recruiting process.
Right, regarding that toughness, the last 2 weeks, Penn State, Northwestern, is that testimony over theory right now?
Yeah, when you look at the way that we played in that Penn State game in the fourth quarter, I can't say enough about the toughness of our team, and I guess it was 28-3 at one point in the fourth quarter, winning games in the fourth quarter, and that's to me what it's all about. And I think the way that our defensive line found a way to win that game, just being physical up front, tackling, holding them to 7 points, finding a way on offense to score, and moving on. And I think, again, that's something that we take a lot of pride in. It's got to continue to build as we go into November, is that we want to have that as a badge of honor.
Does that give you confidence moving forward, or how do you view it right now?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think our guys are very confident right now. There's not too many teams that are undefeated across the country and have won games in the fourth quarter like we have. I think our guys believe that they can get the game into the fourth quarter and win the game in the fourth quarter. You've seen us do that in big games here. I think probably in the Rose Bowl you saw that happened. You saw it in the Notre Dame game. You saw it in the Penn State game, and that's a big part of being tough is winning the game in the fourth quarter. So again, is everything perfect? No, it never is. It's a journey. It's a process. You're constantly challenging guys to get better in certain areas, but you're seeing a lot of great things out there.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you mentioned if you did it again, you might run CJ a little bit more. But we saw Emeka carry the ball twice, obviously the touchdown. We've seen a few of those this year for not just him. How much can you guys be creative in the run game if the traditional run game, for whatever reason, isn't working on that given day?
Yeah, I mean that's where a lot of those big plays came from, was some of those type of plays. You know, when you go sideways, you run the risk of having negative plays. We had a couple that did happen that way, and when you're in a game like that and you're 2nd and 14, that's not a good place to be in with that type of environment. So we tried to stay on schedule, and we did try to throw the ball too. We felt like we wanted to at least try to throw the ball, and you could see there was only a few types of throws that really worked, even when the wind was at our back. So we pushed. When the wind was at our back, we were trying to play fast. When the wind was in our face, we were trying to slow down a little bit. But yeah, I think those type of things, when you get the ball to the perimeter, created some big plays for us. And there was some other ones that didn't, that I thought if we had executed them better, could have been better plays.
Fourth row left, Reed from the Lantern.
I want to ask a bit of a different football question about uniforms. Of course, teams across college football wear alternate uniforms in special occasions, marquee matchups, etc. Just want to get your take on uniforms, if you have any superstitions, things like that.
I mean, I like the traditional uniforms. I love that part of college football. I think that some of our players and recruits like to see a different style and a different swag and look to the uniforms, and that's great. But I'm more of a traditionalist and love the look that's been in college football for a long time. Certainly at Ohio State, in the jerseys that we've worn. But even just across the country and all the different uniforms over the years, it's just something about that I like.
Far left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Saying that you're evaluating everything as far as the run game is pertaining to the offensive line. Right now, are you satisfied with the execution that's there? Do you think schematically there needs to be some shifting? Just how are you parsing that right now?
Yeah, looking at all those things, I think, our expectation here. Our expectation is to score every time we have the ball. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it like that, no, it's not good enough, and we need to be better. And certainly the O-line is a big part of that, but the running backs are too, the tight ends, the wide receivers, the quarterback, everyone's involved in the run game. So, and especially in a game like that where they're all down in there and everyone has to do their part to equate numbers. So, yeah, it's something we'll keep looking at and trying to make sure we have the right stuff in, and then holding everybody accountable to do their job, and that's coaches, players, everybody.
The conditions and/or Mayan's hand play into it all. How much you could use a running back screen game against?
I think when we start to identify all those things, it looks like we're making excuses. So we can't do that. I mean, the bottom line is we got to go out there and run the football, and there's going to be conditions. There's going to be injuries, bumps and bruises. At the end of the day, we got to go out there and produce, and that's the bottom line.
Second row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach. Indiana, I think they've only won one Big Ten game in 2 years now. 1-14, I think, over the 2 years. You just played a team kind of a similar record, and they didn't quit. They didn't back down. What do you expect out of this team coming in and know that they gave you guys a really tough game here 2 years ago?
Yeah, and I thought Fitz did a great job, and his staff did a great job getting everybody going last week. A lot of respect for him and his staff. But the same thing with Tom Allen. You guys know how much of a competitor he is, and certainly has his hands all over the defense. So same thing. They're going to come in here and fight and play really, really hard. They always have. It's a program with a lot of pride. He has a lot of pride. So it's a noon kick. And we got to come out and play a little better early on in the game. I think that's going to be important, and that'll be a focus this week.
To what you just said, starting fast, 3 weeks in a row now. The other team maybe won the first quarter one way or the other. I don't know the points and all that, but just getting off to a better start. What can you do?
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at the Iowa and the Penn State game, I felt like we created some turnovers on it. I think we actually won those first quarters maybe, but we could have jumped on them early, and I think everyone feels that. Yeah, I feel the same way. So let's get in a rhythm early on and get going, and noon start, wake up fast, and get to clicking some pads.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1 The Fan.
I'm going to try to organize a lot of thoughts that I have here about the defensive line rotation. It seemed like going into Big Ten play in Wisconsin, you felt like it'd be better to pare that down. I know that Larry's long-term philosophy is to rotate and has always done that. Mm-hmm. He says he wants fresh guys in the fourth quarter. And unless I'm mistaken, JT played 11 snaps out of 23 and Zach played 12 in the fourth quarter. When you look at it, what are the conversations like? Are you concerned about how it's going? Like, what's the rationale behind maybe what you're doing there?
Yep. No, I think it's a good question. I think the first thing is we have a deep D line, so I think that's the first thing. And like you said, the goal is to be fresh, and certainly at the end of games, but at the end of the season as well. I think for those guys, I think we were maybe in the like 70s or late 70s, maybe 80 plays, something like that in the game. And I think most of those guys were into the mid to high 50s. So, almost 80% of the snaps they were in there for, which is, in a day like that, it's pretty good. I think some of it plays into the personnel groupings. We do change some personnel groupings with Jim. There's sub, there's big, there's sack, there's a lot of different things that come out there. So, he's going to rotate those guys, and I think the overall number was good. Maybe one of those guys got in a rotation, in the fourth quarter there. But overall, if they're on there for 80 to 85% of the game in a big game like that, I think those are pretty good numbers and keeps guys healthy in a heavy running game like that.
For Mike Hall specifically, was that a product of Northwestern's heavy packages? Is there still a pitch count for him? What was his workload? How was that managed?
I think you get the right idea there. Yeah. I mean, it's all the above. Yeah.
Front row middle, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, I talked about the running game quite a bit. I'm going to ask specifically about the 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1. I understand if they've got 9 guys in the box, you're not going to break 8-yard runs. But to be able to not be able to get 1 or 2, when you dissected it, what did you see?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because of all the things that I was disappointed with on Saturday running the football, short yardage was the one that was high on the list. I mean, they're all going to be in there, and we've got to convert in those situations. I think it was a combination of things. There was multiple ones. That hurt us on 3rd down, but we didn't quite get the movement we wanted to, and we didn't quite enter the blocks the right way. You'll see a couple of them where we're not flush on the blocks, and then there's one scheme that we probably could have done a better job with in terms of doing that. But overall, it was just they were down in there and we weren't getting enough movement. We gotta get our pads down lower. We got to fit those blocks a little bit better, and then there's a couple times we can get them in better plays. So I think it's not just one person that made the mistake because there was multiple ones we didn't convert on.
How much was maybe the running back was only my end? On one play, it looked like he could have cut back. Did he do what he was supposed to do, or?
On all of them, I'm not going to give him a 100% grade, no, but I can't just sit here and say it was his fault either. I mean, it's a little bit everybody, and that's not a good sign. Is when it's kind of one guy here and one guy there. But that's what happened.
Second row right, Doug Maurice, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, there's only one football, and you guys have a lot of options in the pass game. You're throwing it to receivers. You're using the tight end a lot this year. But just to follow up on the screen game with the running backs, I think the backs had 41 catches in 13 games last year. They have 9 in 9 games this year. Trey had 27 catches last year. Is there something in the way that defenses are playing you? I mean, usually that running back screen game is taking advantage of their pass rush, and then you hit them like that. Maybe that kind of play doesn't make as much sense this year the way defenses are scheming you guys.
I don't know. I think it's a good point. I don't know if I don't think it's a schematic thing. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we've tried to throw a couple screens to those guys, didn't quite work out. We're still working at that to make sure that that's a weapon for us, and that's usually been good. And we'll keep working at it. I think a little bit of it too is just those guys have kind of been in and out a little bit this year, so I don't know if we've got the rhythm and the chemistry that we wanted there. And so hopefully we can get all these guys rolling here as we head into these last few games.
And then just overall, the whole thing with your offense, you have to win each Saturday, of course. If you don't win each Saturday, then you don't get to where you want to go. But when you think of big picture offense in the offseason, if you guys are going to win a national title, the last 3 games that you're going to play are going to be indoors in Indianapolis and 2 warm weather or indoor games in the playoff. But the first 12 are here.
Right.
Does that require 2 types of thinking about offense, 2 types of preparation about offense? That, of course, we know Saturday's Saturday, but big picture, it is 2 different things, is it not?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's very perceptive, and it's something that I thought a lot about in the offseason. I think that's why you see us in some of the under center stuff in the different groupings. I mean, there was a point in that game last week where I was nervous that the snap was going to go over the quarterback's head, so we were under centered a lot more. But that's, like you said, that's playing in the Big Ten in November. So, again, that was a little bit of extreme, but we've tried to make some adaptations to make sure that we're ready for those type of environments, because then you turn around and then you're in Indy and it's wide open and it's 72 degrees on a fast track. So yeah, you have to have both of those things in order to get to where you want in terms of reaching your goals. Absolutely.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman row on 3.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'm kind of dovetailing off what Doug just asked you, but it's what I wanted to ask you all along.
Mm-hmm.
And you're standing on the sideline, you go into that game, you know what the weather report is, the weather forecast is, but I would think you kind of don't believe that it can take away everything, right? And I would think there's 2 little guys in your head, one screaming, get in the I formation, 2 tights, run the ball down their throat. The other is, well, wait a minute, what about this other stuff we worked on? The conversations. Explain what you go through in that of just saying, no, we just got to line up and run the ball down these guys' throats. What was it a little bit like that?
Yeah, you might have my head bugged, I think, in that game. That's about exactly what it was. Yeah, and that was the conversation during the week. You looked at your phone and you're like, okay, 30-mile-an-hour winds, 40-mile-an-hour winds. It'll be all right. We'll be good. We'll figure it out. Like we always do. Well, what if it isn't? So went back, watched the Patriots play the Bills in the Win Bowl. Went back, watched, and tried to find all the win games from the last couple of years in the NFL. Watched the Browns play the Raiders in 2020 up there, and it was 30-mile-an-hour winds. And just tried to figure out, okay, if this happens like this, what do we do? Didn't have a lot of answers because there wasn't a lot going on in those games. But, yeah, I mean, I think you try to you have to. It's a real thing, but at the same time, you tell our guys, well, we got to go win the game. We just have to play. And if you make it a bigger game, a bigger thing, then it becomes more of a distraction. I thought warming up, we were throwing and catching. I saw one of the punts from the other team actually go straight in the air and land on our side of the line of scrimmage, which I asked the referee, if the ball is punted and it lands on our side of the line of scrimmage, is it live? Can we pick it up? And he says, no, if it crosses the line of scrimmage and comes back, it's not. And then his buddy says, no, it is live. So they had to have a little discussion. And so I had to tell the team, if that ever happened, you pick it up and score, So it was kind of one of those days. But to answer your question, yeah, there's a part of we just got to go do what we do because we have a really good game plan about what they do. But then all of a sudden you have to have this package over here that we kind of put together late in the week to say, if it gets really extreme and you literally can't throw a forward pass, what do you get to? And that's, so the call sheet was like that.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, is running the ball in those kind of conditions, but running the ball, period, there's a lot of attitude involved there, isn't there? As much as there is scheme. You
got it.
And do you think your team has fallen a little bit short in that attitude aspect up till now? 3rd and 1.
You got to get the first down. There's no excuse for not getting the first down. So there can be 50 guys in a box. You got to go get it. You got to get movement, and the extra guy, you got to run him over. You got to crack block him, get it to the corner, and convert. That's the bottom line. So yeah, if we're not converting, then yeah, we're coming up short.
And final question, 2nd row right, Phil Landis, Rivals.
Ryan, again, as you said, not trying to pin anything on just one guy, but is there anything with Matthew Jones's foot that is hindering him from down to down and maybe giving him some trouble at times?
I mean, he's like a lot of our guys. There's a lot of things that this time of year guys are fighting through, and he's a tough player, and we think he gives us our best chance to go be successful. But yeah, I mean, he's like a lot of our guys that have these bumps and bruises right now that he's fighting through, and so yeah, I mean, it's that time of year, I guess.
Position specific, or I guess offensive line in general, when you have a guy, it's not like a receiver you can limit his snaps if you wanted to. Like that, you need those guys to be cohesive and gel together. Does that make it more difficult when you're trying to balance, can I steal this guy some rest somewhere?
No, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think you can do that in the O-line. Yeah, I think you can spell some guys if we think that he needs that. And that's something that usually we decide before the game. Get the injury report, talk to guy. Do we think that we need to put him on a pitch count? If we do, then we can do that. And I think with the O-line, if it's just one guy, it's not the end of the world. But again, we try to make those decisions going into the game, and we feel like based on what we see in practice every day that those 5 are our best 5.
Coach, thank you. Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Jim. Can you get into the importance of getting pressure on the quarterback when you're just rushing 4? I know you guys like to blitz as well, but just the importance of getting pressure when you're just rushing 4, and how do you feel like you guys are doing in that department?
I think we've been doing quite well. I mean, last game wasn't a passing game, but season long, I feel like the majority of our pressures have been 4-man rush, and we're doing a good job disguising coverages, and to me that's what it's all about. I mean, that's when you're really playing well, is when you can get the sacks and the pressures without bringing extra people.
Fourth row left, Jacob Bench, the Lantern.
Yeah, me, Jim, we were talking with Ryan just a few minutes ago, just about making improvements these next 2 games because of the big game here at the end of the month against Michigan. Just playing Indiana, playing against Maryland. How important is it maybe tune up or apply the concepts you want come that game November 26th?
Everything, and I just keep reiterating it to the team or anyone who wants to listen, everything is about habits, that become a lifestyle. So we want to stop every team on every possession of every game. I do not believe that you can, somehow call it out of existence if you haven't done it over and over again when the time comes. So we don't talk really about so much. I mean, we have to talk about who we're playing in terms of game plan, but the way we play has got to be an everyday, every game thing, where you expect to stop them, you compete to stop them on that series, because when the time comes that you need it, that's all you'll know.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Jim, you gave up 9 third down conversions against Northwestern, and 4 of them were on quarterback runs. Just how do you evaluate the third down defense overall? And then, with the quarterback run, was that maybe something that caught you guys off guard, or is something you guys need to execute better on?
I think our third downs have been good, throughout the year. Not pleased last game. The quarterback run is always a difficult component, in that short yardage life. And, I thought we had been doing well with it, but we didn't have a good game with the quarterback run. And then we did not have a good game on third down with the transition into the downfield passing. I've had some experience with this when I was at Duke with playing option teams. Let's face it, basically that's what last game turned into. It was like option football. So when your DBs spend 80% of the game where you're telling them don't worry about covering the receiver, get off and have your vision back to what's going inside because they're not throwing the ball. And then all of a sudden, okay, now this is 3rd and 8. They got to throw the ball, and you need to tighten up that transition. It's a difficult transition, and one that I did not do a good enough job preparing them for. So I think that's the couple that they made on longer yardages. I attribute to that transition, and I got to do a better job of coaching that. Best thing about it is we were 4 for 4 on 4th down, which is like 4 turnovers. And in that kind of game, that's what wins you the game. But we certainly need to do a lot better on 3rd down.
Second row left, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Maybe kind of an extension of that, but because this game, from a circumstances standpoint, was so bizarre, how different was what you guys saw from Northwestern compared to what you were planning to see? And then, without giving up trade secrets, can you kind of explain how then that adjustment gets communicated down through the line and how you felt like that went?
Yeah. I thought the adjustments went well. It was very different. They had components of what they did, but when it went to strictly that kind of game, like I said, it becomes like option football. And then, there are all kinds of gaps created by different formations, and you're really going into a new world that we hadn't been into yet in that kind of game. So, I thought we adjusted well. You can give up some big plays off of that stuff, because you're like one guy out of place and you give up a big play. And, so I thought we hung in there, communicated down, from me to the field, the adjustments, got it done, 7 points. I didn't like the amount of rushing yards we gave up or the third downs that kind of extended some drives. But what we did on fourth down and 7 points, pretty damn good. So you give the guys credit for that. That's all right.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Jim, we talked a lot early on about three linebackers and adjusting to the Big Ten. How do you feel like this defense has adjusted under you to what you were doing in the last few years to Big Ten football? And I imagine you didn't see a lot of weather like that down south as you might hear. How has that all been for you? How have you evaluated the way you've changed?
Good. I think we've adjusted the system to be able to handle some things that you get in the Big Ten. Never good enough. I mean, there's always room for growth. We're working on it. Taking from every opportunity we get to get better. But I think it's gone smoothly so far.
Right next door, Tony Grubman, Buckeye Huddle.
Okay. Jim?
Hey, Tony.
Have you ever coached?
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic,
Good.
thank you. Hope you're enjoying your coffee. Have you ever experienced anything like that weather?
Yes. When I was at Duke, we played Boston College. Somebody look it up, in a hurricane, and we won 9-7. Yeah. How many on you? Coach Day wasn't there, so it might have been like 16, 17.
Ryan said you guys he at least went and watched a bunch of NFL games. Did you go back and watch that game to see how you handled it, or how do you prepare for that?
No, I didn't go back and watch it. I mean, I know what to do. You can't really prepare for it. You just got to hunker down and fight. There's just really you got to do what you need to do to win the game. I mean, that's the bottom line to me. Coach Day has done that well, obviously before me, and continues to do it. But and I think now we're working well together. That's the situation. You got to do what you got to do to win the game. Forget about everything else. I don't like the rushing stats. I don't like the third downs. But we gave up 7 points and we won the game. So you know what I mean? I gotta remember that myself.
2015, by the way.
15. Okay. All right. 15.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Back row, Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals.
Jim, I know personnel decisions as far as switching out guys or in different positions aren't necessarily what you're focused on, but in a game like that you knew was going to be sort of turning into an option football game, it seemed like you'd want to have the more physical corners out there. Jordan Hancock didn't play. Jair Brown got in a lot earlier than I think people expected. Was Jordan just not ready to go, or was it a situation where you just felt like he wasn't going to?
Yeah, the elements, right? I mean, and by the way, Jair did a good job, right? He really sat on some routes when they did start throwing the ball at the end, and did a really nice job. Knocked one away, I know. Yeah, Jordan. I mean, you got to be careful. I mean, the field's a mess. I mean, this guy's fighting his way and competing his way off of a significant injury. So you don't want to put him in, unless you have to, really put him in that situation where he might re-injure it.
Fourth row right, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Jim, kind of obvious, also you said earlier about third downs. When a team like Northwestern, they went, I think, maybe nearly a quarter and a half without throwing a pass. How do you prepare kids for that when they don't throw and then it's 3rd and 8? Like, it's not something. I mean, you can't just flip a switch and be like, okay, that's how do you prepare them for that?
Yeah, I really you only prepare them through experience, and I mean, it's just a matter of like, I don't know, the sheep recognizing the voice of the shepherd, right? It's like, okay, when I call this certain thing now, I'm asking you to change your mindset. You know what I mean? The call, not calling the same call. I don't believe in that. Oh, I call this call and I call it again, but it's 3rd and 8 here. This time it's 1st and 10 and they're running the ball, but you're using the same call and you're expecting the young man to make the change in his mind. Oh, situation's different. I make different calls. So now I just, it's just experience, just getting to say, okay, I made this call because I really want you to focus on they're going to throw the ball, and for them to be able to click over like that into that based on the call, that's on me. I just got to do a better job of preparing them for that, but we get to learn through experience, which is good.
Right next door, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Jim, I think we talked to you at the end of the spring, and you said that you guys were ahead of schedule. And we talked to you again in training camp, ahead of schedule, September, ahead of schedule. How do you feel second week of November with the big challenge coming at the end of the year about where you guys are right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'd still say we're ahead of schedule. I mean, we have not, like I've told you before, we've practiced a lot of things that we haven't used. But it's so hard to say because at the Ohio State, the expectations are so high, right? So, I mean, what really is ahead of schedule? I would say for anywhere else in a first-year defense, you'd say you're way ahead of schedule. For Ohio State, you're just saying, we're doing our job. That's what I would say. Yeah, so we're on schedule because we're doing what we're supposed to do. You can't. This is what we're supposed to do as a defense at Ohio State. So we're on schedule.
Seems like the step from being where you guys were in March to now to get to the number 6 defense in the country took a lot of work. How much more work does it take to go from number 6 to number 1 now that you went from number whatever you were last year to number 6?
Same work. I think maybe the average fan doesn't understand, like, oh, okay, did I joke before? Like, okay, let me call that defense that gets a turnover. Okay, what defense was that again that produces a turnover? Or it's really the same work, the same habits. It's kind of boring, but it's like the same habits, the same ideals, the same sayings back and forth between me and the players, and you're just trying to get better every day, and don't talk about how far you've come or how much farther we have to go. None of that. Let's just get better today.
Second row right, Bill Landis, Rivals.
Jim, when you're playing an offense that will throw 6-7 offensive linemen, a couple 300-pound tight ends, and create all those different gaps, how do you determine when you're going to stay in your base and try to defend that way, or bring on those bigger packages like we saw with the 4 linebackers?
Yeah, most of the time you'll go to the bigger packages. You try to mix in staying in the base people because you have more options out of the base, right? So you're trying to figure out, okay, are they really just going to keep doing the same stuff, or do they have something else out of it? So you mix in base every now and then to make them feel like they don't have you lined up. That you might do something different. That they just can't say, oh, okay, they're doing this, we're doing this, they're doing that. So you mix it up.
Right next door, Doug Lane Reese, Cleveland.com.
Jim, talking about the 3rd downs and the 4th downs, I guess their first drive of the second half, they had a 3rd and 1. Tommy dives over the pile, stops it, has to come out because his helmet comes off. 4th and 1, you guys stop it. Looked like Tehran was really strong at the point of attack up the middle. Just what did you think of the execution to get that stop at that point in the game, and just how are you up in the box emotionally reacting when your defense gets a stop like that?
I was pleased. I mean, again, that's what we're supposed to do. One of our sayings is, I say, give us an inch. They say, we'll defend it. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. So there's zero emotional reaction to me up in the box, zero, because it's just on to the next series. Okay, what did we just do there? And it worked. What might they do next time it comes up? If they know I'm doing this, what are they going to do to that? So it's all the permutations in my head. So there's really no time for celebration. But I want our defense to expect to win those situations.
And when you have that moment, I asked Tommy after the game, like just the rules, he has to come out on that fourth down, and then he's such an important part of the defense. You guys get the stop without him on the field.
Yeah, you don't blink. Yeah, you don't blink. Again, that's the reaction of the leader has a big effect on the team. So I don't blink. I just next guy in, make the call, play, expect success.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Following up on what Bill was asking a little bit, you were, I think earlier this year, just talking about how you really rather never come out of that base. You just kind of explained a little bit why. But whether it was early in the season when you've had some 3 linebacker looks, or you had a 4 linebacker look, or Michigan may make you do some other things, you come into the week already planning on we might have to pull this out, or is it just something like in the moment because you've already?
No, yeah, you gotta practice it. You have to work on it, and you like to have some change ups off of it too. So you're not just, like I said, doing the same thing when that personnel group is in there. But it's definitely something you got to practice, and then it becomes how much do I need to use it based on what kind of success they're having against the base, because you'd rather stay in base because the base gives you more options.
Deep left, Justin Holbrook, WCMH.
Indiana had 3 quarterbacks last week. They're going back to Connor this week. How do you prepare for a team that is supposed to have 1 quarterback going in? He had an injury. He might throw something else at you. How do you prepare with what they do normally with the quarterback that they might give you?
They're pretty similar, and one guy may run around a little bit more, but I think your preparation is the same, unless there's really a drastic change in what they do from one quarterback to the next. You try to keep it as similar as possible between the 2 different guys.
Front row right, Austin Ward, Rivals, 97.1.
Jim, I know with the volume of snaps that your defense had to play on Saturday that some rotation up front is going to be required. Part of Larry's philosophy has always been to be fresh in the fourth quarter. So if that's the case and JT plays 11 out of 23 snaps and Zach plays 12, are you comfortable with that amount? It seems like pretty clearly those are your 2 best linemen at this point.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with whatever Coach Johnson does, right? I mean, he's a fantastic coach, so I think he manages his players accordingly. But I know sometimes we get caught up in packaging, right? Like I think they had all in the 50s, eventually at the end. But sometimes we get caught up in packaging and different calls that I make that put certain people in the game. Also, it's like it's a 4-quarter thing, yes, but it's also a series-to-series thing. It's also in the middle of series thing, So it's a way that he keeps the guys fresh and moving and all involved. So I don't, it's been successful. So definitely go with how he calls it.
Right next door, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Teron Vincent, in a nutshell, has he been a pleasant surprise? Has he been a major surprise, especially the way he's played recently, et cetera? Where would you? Because obviously you had no preconceived notion of him when you showed up and stuff.
Right.
He was a 5-star recruit or high 4-star. Is he playing to that level now? I mean, what are you seeing from him?
He's playing to that level. If that, I didn't even know his level. I mean, that like that 4-star and 5-star stuff, coming in or looking at it. But he has been absolutely consistent since I've been here. And, we joke all the time, he and I, about the amount of double teams he has to take on. You know what I mean? It's not very sexy, but he does that work. And he's been incredibly consistent with it, and really a bonus, for me to have inside, because then he'll be, he can do that. I don't care who you are. Nobody really likes that, but he can do that. But then when we move him, he's athletic enough to make plays, both, yeah.
And one other thing, I kind of asked you about this off and on through the year, but does it do any good to complain about holding? have you found that, I mean, there's a great photo of JT Tuimoloau standing up a tackle on Saturday, and he's reaching with his left arm. You remember the play. But clearly the right tackle's got his jersey and pulling down. I mean, JT seems to have had to run a gauntlet, maybe others don't this year, just to make plays. But have you found, does it do any good to complain to higher-ups about that kind of situation?
No, does no good to complain. And I stopped complaining a long time ago, probably in my early 30s. You know, really, you got to fight. You got to fight through it. You know, and it's JT. I think gets it more because he's so athletic, and linemen get out of control. You could probably call it on him every other play. You know, guys that are blocking him, but unfortunately, it's part of the game. But it's an offensive world, so defensive guys kind of hobble along, fighting against the rules and uphill the whole way, uphill both ways, like my dad said when he went to school. Yeah, in bad weather, uphill both ways, and they're holding you and double teaming you, high-lowing you. But no, don't complain. Don't use it as an excuse. Don't talk about it with the players. Now, when they get one, I celebrate it. Hey, you drew a holding call. Everybody, and that's good. But otherwise, we don't talk about it. It becomes part of the game, and you got to fight through it.
Got time for two more questions. Front row, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, to revisit the quarterback runs at Northwestern, defending those plays, is there any commonality to what you faced earlier in the year with Toledo and trying to defend a quarterback who can move, and what goes into maybe?
Yeah, I think there's commonalities. Yeah, there's anytime you face the quarterback run, there's definitely commonalities and things that you can learn from it. And it's everywhere in football, and now even in the NFL, they see it. So, yeah, there are principles. There are things you can learn. There are things you can point out, and the mistakes that you made, and why you made them, and how we need to do it better, and other, And then there are certain plays where I can point out to the players and say, "Look, we have this call. I should have made that call." You know what I mean? When this one is, not great against quarterback run. This one is much better. I should have made the other call. I can take responsibility for that too.
How would you assess your comfort level with defending a mobile quarterback at this stage of the season?
Yeah, I mean, good. I think we have, at least I should say, we have all the right tools in place. We just need better execution. But I think the guys understand it.
Three final questions. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, obviously you, because of the conditions, you went to 4 linebackers at times. But just generally speaking, how confident are you in not just Tommy and Steele, but in Cody, but guys like Taraji got into the snap and EA and just the depth there?
I think that depth has grown. The more we've been able to get Cody in 3 linebacker situation, it's just more opportunities for me to see him in the game, and then feel okay. If he goes in the 2 linebacker situation, he's going to be good. So it's good. It's and NEA. I want to start to bring him along, in the 2 linebacker situation. So it's not just Tommy and Steele, but it could be Cody and EA. And I think the more opportunities they get to be in the game in other positions, it's still the game. And you're talking about our season on the line, and it's 7. These are like critical points. I don't care who you're playing. And to get those guys in there and see them perform is a good thing for me in terms of confidence down the road.
That hold on Cody Simon on the touchdown run.
No comment.
Coach, thank you very much.